So was the 14th Lok Sabha a waste of time? Was it a new low for MPs? Joining us tonight, Sachin Pilot, Lok Sabha MP from the Congress Party, a first-time MP as well, Ravi Shankar Prasad of the BJP, and C.V. Madhukar, the Director of PRS Legislative Research, is with us in the studio. It's an organization that's been doing a lot of work on legislation in Parliament for the last few years. Sachin, let me ask you first. You just heard those statistics there, and I call them very telling figures. What do those figures tell you? What do they reflect for you?
Well, I don't think statistics really tell the whole story. And I mean, the 14th Lok Sabha, certainly there were aberrations which no one can be proud of. And I think as parliamentarians, one has to really up the standards, to meet people's expectations. But don't forget that the 14th Lok Sabha also passed some very landmark legislations.
Played tonight. And obviously that shows that when MPs want to, they can have a meaningful discussion. But let me ask you this, Mr. Prasad, that when you look back at the number of interruptions, disruptions, the fact that the Lok Sabha only sat for 48 days, the lowest ever in a calendar year, do you think there was something the opposition could have dealt with differently, we could have done differently apart from storming the well of the House or walking out?
Well, speaking for myself, Nidhi, I never support storming the well. And I never go it myself. But at times, situation compels you. Because don't forget one thing, Parliament of India is the biggest panchayat of India. When you raise an issue, it is heard by the executive, it is taken notice of by the media, and it becomes a national issue. That is equally important. Therefore, some kind of acrimony was inherent in the kind of government we had post 2004. I wish after the election a new order comes into being, a more stable order. But the larger issue remains that the duration of the House is determined by the government as well. Because the government calls the House.
I saw Sachin Pilot smiling while he was speaking. Sachin, why are you smiling?
Maybe because I think what Mr. Prasad has wished for is not going to happen, and he knows that very well. But let me make a point. I think the Parliament is not the sole responsibility of the government. Surely the leadership is with the government to run the House the best way it can. But there is a business advisory committee in which all members of the party, the leaders of the party are on it. And the business of the House is decided with consent of all opposition parties. I think what we saw in the last few years in Parliament certainly made me quite sad when I saw the opposition, which I think the government had full right to ask for a debate. We've always said that whatever your issues are, talk about it, discuss it. This is the Parliament, this is the forum for that. But I think the agenda was to somehow disrupt the proceedings, not just to make a hue and cry and to shout and to walk out, but to shout so loudly that even the ministers and the prime ministers can't make their statements, they can't lay down the budget. I mean, and even the prime minister's speech, I mean, historically, when the prime minister speaks, the whole of Parliament listens. But this time, the opposition went so as low so as to even interrupt the prime minister when he was speaking on the nuclear agreement with the US. So I think there are some very low points where all of us have to introspect, because it's not just the government. I think there are 44 parties in Parliament. It is the responsibility of everyone. And I think in a democracy, opposition party is as important as the ruling party, so as to have a real healthy deliberations of issues and really come up with the best legislation possible for the people of this country.
Mr. Prasad, isn't that a valid point? I mean, at least let's have a meaningful debate. You said yourself that there was a very good debate in Parliament last week, the nuclear deal, terrorism, and we appreciate that. But we saw so much acrimony, bitterness as well. And we saw a women's reservation bill being torn up in Parliament. I mean, surely you concede that that was really not the way to register your protest.
Well, Nidhi, today I have to make 2 points. First, what my good friend Sachin stated about the value of opposition